Welcome back, everybody. A little bit more of my free agent grades. There's still more that have come off the board. There's some that I forgot, so I'm going to get to them all for you today. We're talking about a lot of good players late in free agency. Wasn't expecting a bunch of big moves and high dollar amounts later in free agency like this, but we still got good ones coming. So don't forget to like the video if you like it. Comment anything you disagree with down below, and then subscribe. We're trying to get to 500 is the next goal. We just hit 100. Thank you very much. So let's get right into it with legend Mason Rudolph. I actually really like this one. I think for 3.62 million, it's just very cheap. A lot of even Steelers fans, there was kind of, some chanting for Mason Rudolph, and I think they liked him, and I think he's just kind of one that never really got like a super fair shot. He was just kind of known as the guy that got smacked in the head with a helmet by Myles Garrett, and then they kind of moved on. They draft Kenny Pickett, and they think he's going to be the guy, and then they move on from Pickett, but not to go try Mason Rudolph. They say, we've got a great team. We need to get some people, so we get Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So the Titans go out and they go, well, Malik Willis is kind of a bust. We got Will Levis, and he showed a couple flashes his rookie year, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And Mason Rudolph's just kind of this. I think there's still some upside. I think he deserves the opportunity to start. And I think, in the event that Will Levis, I don't even know, I think they're probably going to compete for the job. I think if Will Levis can't beat him out, or if, Will Levis does go down, because Will Levis does not let up. When he's on the football field, he gives it his all. So I think you have a nice upside guy in Mason Rudolph. That who knows? Mason Rudolph could have a bit of a Brock Purdy story where he comes in from an injury, and maybe he just lights it up with DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley out there. So B plus for me. I think Mason Rudolph's a great signing for Tennessee. We got another one for Tennessee that I just said, Calvin Ridley. I think I give this one a B just because I think it is a lot of money for Calvin Ridley. He's 20, I believe he's 29, so he's not super old, and I think it's huge to get a young quarterback, two young quarterbacks, one not really given the opportunity in Mason Rudolph, and then Will Levis, just young learning. To give a guy two great targets like that, I think is huge. So I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a good signing, but I do think 23 million is a lot of money for what Calvin Ridley has to offer. So I'm interested to see how that works out. The Titans have made a lot of changes too. So I do like the 4-year giving opportunity to develop, because I believe DeAndre Hopkins is gone next year. But you've got a new whole new staff for the most part. So I think it's interesting that they're going this direction. But they have to rebuild, and I like that they are signing the big name pieces amidst the rebuild. Because I think it's going to be necessary moving forward. I don't know if you're going to get 4 years out of Calvin Ridley. We'll see what happens. I hope he can. But I give it a B. Like I said, I think the money is a little high for Calvin Ridley. Some would argue, he's still a great receiver, and I think he is. It's just for 4 years at 23 a year, it was a little bit much for me. So I just give it a B, but I think it is a great signing for the Titans and a wide receiver too. Next, Bobby Wagner. We got two more. We got more back-to-back, so we got another commander after this one. But Bobby Wagner, I have a B plus. I think 8 million is really low. He is very old too, but you give Dan Quinn a guy. He's just signing all sorts of great defensive players, and I'm not surprised, but I am surprised at how quick the turnaround is. I guess what I'm surprised about is how many moves on defense that they've really made. Like they have completely transformed the defense. Last year, the defense was Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and Cam Curl. Now they are all on different teams, and there's names everywhere else. I guess Kendall Fuller was still over there too, but they've just signed people everywhere, and they've made changes everywhere. But this one I really like. I think 8 million is affordable. It's only 1 year. Probably have him in there to train. I would assume they'll draft a linebacker somewhere in there, maybe learn, and even the current linebackers in the room. I think to be able to learn from one of the greats in Bobby Wagner is huge. So I like the signing. I think 8 million is a very fair price. Gets a B plus, on the verge of an A minus. I think it's a great signing. Jameson Crowder. This one's just a B. I guess looking at it now, I feel like it's kind of shameful that Jameson Crowder's getting a B and Bobby Wagner's getting a B plus. So I think you probably move up the Bobby Wagner to maybe like an A minus, and maybe bring Jameson Crowder to a B minus. I think what I really like is just such a cheap price. He can still play football. He's not going to be amazing, but you find a little bit of a replacement, and evidently a lot cheaper replacement for Curtis Samuel. Not that Jameson Crowder is going to be Curtis Samuel, but I think for needing to fill that hole, I think for how cheap you did it for, I think it makes sense. You're just kind of filling a gap, so I don't see this to be a huge signing, but I just give it a B. Again, I felt like I had to give it a bit higher of a grade just because of, I mean, you're pretty much at the veteran minimum at 1.3. The minimum's 1.2. So I think it's a good signing for them, getting someone to replace Curtis Samuel. Jonah Williams, Cardinals definitely need help on the offensive line, and they do that big time with Jonah Williams, who was great all these years for the Bengals. He was always a highly touted tackle, or at least, he was always above average. I wouldn't say he was a great, but for 2 year, $15 million, I think is a phenomenal deal. You're seeing tackles making 20. I don't know if anybody's made 30. I can't remember the Trent Williams contract, but I know they've made 20 to 25 million a year. So getting Jonah Williams at only 15, it's only 2 years, so it's not super long deal. Kind of helps you get through Kyler Murray if he's going to continue to be your guy, or you're kind of in a good position to move on in the world that you have to. But I really like Jonah Williams to the Bengals, so I give it a B plus. I think it's a good fit, and definitely a need for the Cardinals. Again, I think it's a good price for Jonah Williams. Joe Flacco's an A minus. To the Colts, I guess it's just because I don't know if I like. I don't know what they were going for. Like, Joe Flacco proved last year that he can be a great backup, or if he should have been a starter this year. But he can prove that he can do it. He's just so different from Anthony Richardson. I mean, I guess in the element of, like, you would be able to teach Anthony Richardson. Hopefully Joe Flacco could teach him, all the veteran things that would be good for a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson to know. But I don't know. I don't know if the Colts are in the same position that the Browns were in last year, where the Browns had one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best. I guess towards the end they kind of fumbled a little bit there, but one of the best defenses in the league. Obviously Chubb was out, but I guess the Colts do have a good running game too. So, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem. I like Flacco there. I like the veteran presence that can help. It's only an A minus as opposed to like an A plus, just because, I don't know. I guess I expected somebody that would have been a little bit closer in play style to Anthony Richardson. I know that there's not many of those in the league. But I just thought the Joe Flacco signing was fine. I think 8.7 million is a really good deal. So that's why it's kind of an A minus, because I think you could make the argument that of the like bridge quarterbacks, unless you're including like Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson, I think you could say Joe Flacco's he's probably the third best on that list. Could even make an argument over Russ, I guess, if you're a Russ hater. But I like Joe Flacco, and I like that Anthony Richardson was not able to stay healthy last year. So if you need a guy, Joe Flacco really is your guy. So I think it's a great signing. I just thought it was an interesting signing because I don't really like the fit. And like, I'm just, as a Bears fan, I'm thinking about when we had Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, and they're like, okay, we're going to sit Justin Fields behind Andy Dalton to learn, and then cart him out on the field just to be carted off real quick because of Myles Garrett. And I don't know, just because the play style was different, I'm not saying that stunted his development, but your offensive coordinator basically has to come up with two different offenses, one for a mobile quarterback, one for pocket quarterback like Joe Flacco. So that's, I think, my biggest problem, and why it's not like an A plus is because that is going to be very hard on Shane Steichen. So we'll see what happens, but A minus. I'll stop talking about Joe Flacco. Eric Hendricks. This one for me is a B. I actually just had this one as a C because I thought that Eric Hendricks wasn't, like, I thought he was kind of falling off and I hadn't really heard his name anymore. But Eric Hendricks has actually he's been pretty good. He's been very consistent, and I don't know. I guess I didn't hear his name much last year, but there was a lot of negativity about the Chargers, and he kind of gets overshadowed. Well, he was only there the 1 year. That doesn't help either. But by Khalil Mack, Nick Bosa, Derwin James, all the talent that they had over there. So he definitely gets overshadowed in that way. but he's been very consistent. He's always been healthy. He always gets 100 tackles. And for 1.5 million, it's an absolute steal of a deal. He's on the older end, and I don't see the Cowboys being a team that's going to make like they're kind of, I don't know if they're a Super Bowl or bust even, team, just because I don't know. I don't love it. So for 1.5 million though, it's an absolute steal. Like I said, close to the veteran minimum for a guy that's getting 100 tackles a year, can still do it. I don't know. Eric Hendricks is just fine for me. Obviously, Leighton Vander Esch just retired too, so got to fill that hole. Sheldon Rankins, this is a B plus for me. I like this. Has been consistently, a great defender, and I think the price is fine. 12.25. Had a really successful year last year in Houston, and I think part of that was because of D'Amico Ryans, but Bengals could always use some help over there, so I think it's a good signing. Only 2-year, 24.5 million. So I go B plus for Sheldon Rankins to the Bengals. Like I said, this is just fine, and I like the price for the position. A lot of guys getting closer to 20 million, and I don't think he's worth the 20 million. So I think it's a fair deal, but I don't know. I just like that it's only a 2-year deal, kind of a not a prove it sort of deal, because he had a good year last year, but I don't know how often that's going to continue moving forward. He's also a little older, so I don't know. I like the deal. It was fine. It wasn't amazing, but I think it was a fair price and a need for the Bengals. Sheldon Rankins, B plus. Kendall Fuller was just a C. I think maybe I was accounting for them losing Xavier Howard too much in that, but I just don't love Kendall Fuller. He's been another guy who I think he had an injury problem once. I could be completely wrong about that, but I think he's been a generally healthy guy, and I just think he's fine. I don't really like him as the cornerback too, though, next to Ramsey. I think they're going backwards at that position. I think $7.5 million is probably more than he's worth, especially at his age. I guess the nice parts is only a 2-year, and it is a need, but it's just a C for me. I guess you could make an argument for C plus because they needed a guy. There's not many left, and they clearly didn't want to pay Xavier Howard the money that he's looking for, who is still a free agent, by the way, which is kind of crazy to me. But just a C. I've never been a huge fan of Kendall Fuller. I just think he's kind of an underwhelming player. I believe he had like one really good year, but I just don't. I think this is just kind of filling a gap. I'm very indifferent about this. DJ Reader, though, on the other hand, this is a B plus. I don't know if Sheldon Rankins is quite going to be filling his position. I would have probably just kept Reader in that case, because DJ Reader's been one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the league, and the Lions get way better at that position. So you've now got Aiden Hutchinson, who's an absolute menace. You've got Aleem McNeil, who I believe got 5 sacks last year, which is pretty good for an interior defensive lineman. And now you've got one of the best run defenders on the defensive line in the league for $13.63 million. So I really like that. I think it's a good price, B plus. 2-year, $27.25 million for DJ Reader going to the Lions. Like I said, Lions definitely needed to fill that spot, and they fill it with one of the better options available. Not really going to give you much pass rush at all. But as far as stopping the run, he's going to be in there. You've got Aiden Hutchinson for pass rush, and then Aleem McNeil is kind of your like in-between guy where it helps a little. He can rush the passer, and he'll still be able to defend the run well. So I think the money's right. I think the team's right, the scheme's right, the price is right. B plus. Good signing for the Lions. And then Jordan Whitehead gets an A. Jordan Whitehead is still a great football player. I believe he spent time with the Bucs, goes to the Jets. Now he's back with the Bucs. And $4.5 million is just insanely cheap. The Bucs last year ran about 50-50 man and zone. And Jordan Whitehead in his career with the Jets, I believe he was mostly in zone. So I'm interested to see how that works out. But Jordan Whitehead had a career high last year in interceptions with 4. He almost did 100 tackles as well. So a huge season all around for him with the Jets. And so to only get $4.5 million a year for the 2 years, he gets back with his original team. Like I said, though, I think the price is phenomenal. I think the need was big over there in Tampa Bay. And I think the deal is the biggest thing. It was such a great price. And and the fit too. Like I said, I think it'll be interesting with a lot more zone coverage. But I think he'll be able to adjust well, and he's been good. So he gets an A, like I said, mainly for the price. Going back to a familiar team, really like that. And then finally we have Joe Mixon, 9-year, 27, 9-year, 3-year, 27 million, 9-year average. I think is a great contract for him. Originally, I was kind of confused because I was kind of thinking, Joe Mixon and Damon Pierce, kind of similar vibes for me. I don't really see them being that different. And normally in these, committee backfields, you like to have your kind of, bell cow back, your short yardage, big, get a yard or two is really all they're for, but they can do it every time. And then your receiving, kind of pass blocking back. In a perfect world, you have all three of those. And I look at Joe Mixon and Damon Pierce kind of similarly. I guess Joe Mixon, I looked, and he actually has been getting a little better as far as out of the backfield, and he's been a lot more useful. So I think that's going to be nice. And I also think this can help elevate Damon Pierce because, he's had a really rocky start to his career, and he's been underwhelming. I had high expectations for him. I actually really liked what I saw from him year one. And obviously the injuries don't help, and that's why you need to get a guy like Mixon. But I think for the price at $9 million a year, it's got to be a B+ for me. I think it's a great deal, and I think it's just what they need. Like I said, you maybe prefer to get a little bit more of a receiving back guy. Like I guess if you could have gotten like an Eckler or something, but I don't even know. He's older, so I like Joe Mixon. He's still younger. He's going to fill the gap. I think they liked what they saw as far as his receiving last year out of the backfield. And then, that's a pretty nice dual threat in Joe Mixon and Damon Pierce. And then obviously keeping hits off of Damon Pierce to hopefully keep him healthy. Because I think when he's healthy, he can be a good back. But it has not been good so far. So let me know what you think down below. If there's any grades you would change. If you like the video, give it a like. And then don't forget to subscribe. Remember, we're trying to hit 500, okay? 100 is great. Very happy. 500 is the next goal. So thank you for watching and have a great day.